Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Sam and this is The Lonely Chapter, a show where we speak to interesting people, finding out their stories, discovering what motivates them, whilst also learning from their highs and their lows. Today it's just me, reflecting on 5 lessons that I've learned from my first month of podcasting. Hopefully some of these will resonate with you and you can take them away to implement them in your day-to-day life. It's been a really fun experience so far and I'm excited to keep pushing forward with it and seeing where these conversations take me. Thank you for listening. This one was made for your enjoyment. So I want to start today with why I'm doing it. So there is, a selfish reason in that I want to reflect back on the last month personally and just recover some of the things. I think recovering things you've learned and things you've spoken about can be a really good way to make them stick. But also for you, in case you've missed any episodes or they've just gone past you, certain bits in the episodes, as does happen if you're listening whilst you're doing other things. That's absolutely normal. But yeah, just to repeat back some of them and some of my favourite lessons that I've learnt. It's going to be one lesson from each episode that I've done with a guest. So that's 4 lessons from the guests and then 1 lesson that I've learnt myself since starting. Before beginning with the lessons, I just want to thank everyone for listening, everyone who has listened so far and has given me feedback. It's been really useful, really good to hear the feedback, positive and negative. I encourage it all. I will happily take it on board and try and learn. So thank you. If you have been enjoying it, and if you do enjoy, if you could share it to anyone you think would enjoy it. If you've got a favourite episode, share that. Just send it to one person. It would really help. So thank you ahead. And yeah, if you could also rate it wherever you listen to the podcast, that also helps. So thank you and let's get into it. Lesson 1 is from episode 2 and that was with Andrew Kinsler. The lesson is emotion drives behaviour. This was a segment where Andrew spoke about the positive effects therapy has had on him. He said, by learning about your own mind, you start to learn about other people's minds as well. What that then allows you to do is when people act in a certain way that you may have previously perceived them as being rude or not very nice person in that moment, you can step back and take a different angle. They may have a lot going on in their life. They may be having a bad day. They may be chronically shy, as Andrew said, and they might be overcompensating for that, and that comes out in the opposite way. I really like this insight because I think it's so easy to discount people in your day-to-day life. I think especially in the fast-paced world we're living in, especially like in cities. I live in London, and it's so easy to just walk past everyone and not even acknowledge them, let alone take a second to think how they're actually feeling. I mean, we don't even make eye contact or say hello to people. We just walk on by. So as soon as we have one of these interactions, we're immediately on a defensive, you could say, and we just write them off as that's who they are, that's how they act. When in actual fact, they could be having like the worst day of their life. You just don't know. The way that I've sort of taken this into my own life is, I suppose I've done it for a little while. And the one for me is road rage. I used to be really, really bad when driving. And I'd be saying some awful things when people cut me off or whatever it was. I'm probably the polar opposite, and if anything, I'm too calm now when something happens in the car. But it's a way of thinking that is similar in a way. I've taken that step back, and by dwelling on something that happens on the road, it then impacts everything going forward. It's still in your mind, and you're thinking about what happened 5 seconds ago rather than the roundabout you're approaching. And I just don't think it's beneficial at all. I think, it can really impact. So taking it back to the lesson today, maybe next time you're interacting with someone, whether it's a family member or a shop assistant, when that urge to react negatively hits you, if they have said something or done something that makes you go that way, just take a second to breathe and open up your vision. It may not be the case always that something's wrong, but most times there is a reason for someone's actions to be off. Emotion drives behaviour. Lesson 2 was from episode 3, and that was with Adam Youssef Beghi. Hard work pays off. And any CrossFitters out there will probably recognise this as Matt Fraser's motto. But this isn't a cheap attempt to copy that, but instead it's a real acknowledgement that it is so true. Speaking to Adam about his day-to-day life when he first started personal training made me feel tired, to be honest. No idea how he did it for 18 months. It's immense. Anyone who listened will have heard this, and it is just mad. So I'm just going to quickly read it out again. So Adam was waking up at 4:40 a.m, leaving the house at 5, getting to the gym at 5:30. He'd then work non-stop, no break, from 5:30 a.m. till 11 a.m. He'd drive home, which was an hour because of the traffic. He'd get there for 12. He then had 4 hours to himself for rest and training. He had to fit in his own training during that time. He'd be back to the gym for 5. He would then be in the gym non-stop again from 5 till 9:30 p.m. He'd then leave the gym. Traffic's a bit better, but not good enough that it cuts a massive amount out. So it was a 40-minute journey this time. Home for 10 past 10. Eat, sleep, repeat. And that was Monday to Friday. He was doing that, and Saturdays were a slightly shorter day, but still an early start. And for me, it just made me realise that a lot of people who think they're working hard aren't working hard as they may think. But also, the other way I have thought about it is just thinking about the consistency and the hard work paying off. And I think in this world, we are always looking for a quick fix. We're looking for the snake oil. We're hooked on trying to find a quick result, whether it's fat loss, whether it's improving a morning routine, or whether it's quitting a bad habit. I think we always look for the quick, punchy results. We're never happy to just put in the work and just let the work pay off over time. And it's difficult to do because you don't see the results straight away. But it's just being consistent that's so important. And if there's one thing I've learned from my time training in the gym is consistency is the most important thing. Just, you may feel like it was a bad session. You may not have felt your best when you went out for your run, but you did it, and it will compound over time. And a year from now, that run where you ran a little bit slower, you weren't really feeling it, you felt out of breath a bit easier, it's still added to where you got to that year later, or wherever on it is. But speaking to Adam and seeing his phenomenal work ethic at the time when I worked with him, and also reliving it when I spoke to him on the episode, I can see now like how it has paid off. His days are much shorter. He balances his life outside of the gym extremely well. And that's something we spoke about in the episode as well. Having recently become a father in the last couple of years, and it's really good to see. And it's a really good reminder, I think, that consistency and hard work does pay off. In terms of those quick fixes, another way I like to look at it is thinking about how long it took you to get there. If we take fat loss as an example, it took you years and years to put that weight on. Why do you think you'll be able to lose it all in a month and still be in a healthy state? Consistency is so much more important. Put the hard work in regularly and it will pay off over time. Hard work pays off. Lesson number 3 is from episode 4, and that was with Billy Kerr. Gratitude is important. When I spoke to Billy, there was a passing moment in the conversation that I didn't really take in at the time, but having listened back to it, I just really enjoyed it. He said, I try not to worry about what's going to happen and just think about the present. And I think it's a really good reminder for us, again, sort of going back to the first lesson about taking a step back and thinking about how other people are doing. This one's more about looking inwards, so thinking about ourselves and thinking about what we have got ourselves. When we stop and think about our lives day to day, we may complain that the tube journey to work was hot and busy. The coffee you got served from your daily stop-off was a bit colder than it normally is. Or that it always seems to rain as soon as you do your hair nicely. Whatever it is, like, it's not the end of the world. If we take that step back a bit, we can see the bigger picture. They're not going to impact your life unless you let them. I just want to throw in here that I don't want to discredit people that have got lots going on and really serious problems and having a really bad time, because I know that there are people out there, of course, way more than we want to be out there, that are going through those times. But I think a lot of us who aren't going through those times can easily make trivial problems bigger. So it's just a reminder for me in those moments to think, okay, that wasn't great, but it's not the end of the world. Like, life is still good and blessed, so that's not a problem. I think it is helped by social media as well at the moment, in the fact that everyone is posting the best things in their life. So they're walking with their friends, they're doing running challenges, they're doing whatever it is, they're on holiday, they're in the sun. These are the best moments of their life. These are the highlights that they want to share with you. They don't want to share the dark times. They don't want to share when they're sat in bed and they've been there all morning and it's now 1 p.m. and they've been scrolling all morning and they feel like they haven't done anything with their day. They won't share that because it doesn't look good. So just be aware if you are someone who scrolls and looks at other people, and if you do find yourself comparing, because I do it as well. It's so easily done. Even you can tell yourself not to do it, and suddenly you find yourself doing it. So just remember that, and just be aware of what you have. Be grateful for what you have. Like Billy said, just take a moment to think about what you have and realize that it's not too bad. Gratitude is important. Lesson 4 is from episode 5, and that was with Roland Baxter. Prepare, and prepare some more. When Roland went for his first interview with the local Army careers team, he was woefully unprepared. And they were his words, not mine, so I'm allowed to say that. To be fair to him, he was 14 at the time, but it taught him a really important lesson. and a lesson that I've taken away from that conversation as well. The colonel who was interviewing him told him he needed a couple more years, but he also gave him the valuable guidance on which courses to go on and other things that would support his preparation for the revisit. On revisiting, Roland was a different person. He'd prepared so well, he'd upped his game big time. This reflected in the interview and ultimately led him to successfully getting onto the path of joining the army as an officer. This shows that preparation is so important. Both of his interviews at the same place were with the same colonel, and the outcomes were completely different. He remembered him from the time before, and he could obviously see the difference and how much more prepared he was, how he had taken on board what he'd been told to do and what he'd been guided on doing. And I'm sure that played a massive part as well. The more I spoke to Roland about his journey, it was clear that from this point on, he'd really taken this on board with everything that he did. So he prepared so well, and he was aware that he needed to do what he needed to do, and more. It didn't make it easy, but I'm sure it definitely made it easier than it would have been if the preparation hadn't been done. Going forward into his training, he was clued up on everything that he needed to do and everything that would be asked of him. Maybe not everything, I suppose, but the idea is that he was aware going in of as much as he could be, and so the little things that they added in that he wasn't aware of didn't seem as big of an issue because the rest of the stuff was expected. Whereas if you went in without being prepared for the other stuff, it's all unexpected and you're just going to be in a world of pain from them. Thinking about this in other worlds, I suppose, outside of the army, you might sign up for a marathon or a run or whatever it is. And it may be through a mountain range with extreme elevation gain. And maybe you just haven't noticed. Maybe you haven't really looked into the actual route. It's quite easy for someone to do that potentially if they're not used to events and they don't look at the layout of the elevation. So yeah, you sign up for a marathon, you're training for a marathon, you know the distances of a marathon, that's fine. You turn up on that day, you stand at the start line and someone says, "Oh, how are you feeling about the massive climb at mile 20? The more you get chatting, the more you realise that there's plenty more climbs and you've done no hill training. You're going to be in a world of hurt there. And it's just that little bit of preparation that could have made that so much easier. If you had just looked into it a bit more, you would have realised that you need to do the hill training. You need to get ready for that. And that will make a lot of things easier. And I think in life we can do that often in ways. We can wander into things without looking ahead sometimes, and that can backfire with us being underprepared. And I think it doesn't take a lot. Just a little bit of forward thinking can make things a lot easier. It's so important to be ready for what's coming. It might just give you that boost you need to get going and get it done. Prepare, and prepare some more. Lesson 5, and this is the lesson that I've learned throughout the first month of my podcasting journey. I've spoken about the 4 lessons that I've learned with my guests, from my guests even, I should say, and from having those conversations with them, listening to them and learning from them. My lesson is this: people are interesting. We talk to people every single day, whether it's on the phone, in the supermarket, or saying hi to your neighbour over the fence while you're putting the bins out, whatever it is. In these scenarios, we're talking to people Yes, but there's so much more to uncover. Everyone has a story, and the beautiful thing is that every story is different. Try this. Try speaking to someone that you regularly speak to, but sit down for 10 minutes, maybe, whatever it is, and really ask them questions that you wouldn't normally. See where it takes you, rather than just asking them how they are. Yeah, I'm good. You? Yeah, I'm good. Cool. That's it. Instead of that, just sit down, ask them what's going on. Ask them about something they did in the past. If it's a colleague and you know that they did a different job before, just ask them a bit about that and just see what happens. And if something they say interests you, ask a bit more about it. Just dig into it. And if you get on well with this person, then they're not going to mind. And even if they do mind, they'll just tell you it's not a problem. But I think it's so important to speak with a bit more depth to people in our day-to-day lives. You could also try speaking to strangers as well. And this is something that I've started to try and do a bit more in my own life. In terms of maybe it's a coffee shop or a supermarket, or wherever you may be, rather than going through the usual rigmarole of saying your pleasantries and nothing more. Just take 2 extra seconds to ask them how they are. Walk in and say, "Hi, how are you doing? How's your day going?" Most of the time, they will be shocked at first and a little confused, probably. This is just because the majority of people don't ask. They're robots. They're walking in, they know their order off the top of their head. They order it. They don't even look up at the cashier sometimes. So this person then becomes the same way, the cashier. So as soon as someone asks them a bit more of a question about themselves, it can be quite confusing, understandably. But they then smile and you can get into a bit more of a conversation with them. And it doesn't cost a lot. It's not a lot of energy, but it can make someone's day a little bit better. It might lead into a more in-depth conversation, which could take you somewhere else. You just don't know. And that's the lovely thing that I've learnt. It's been fantastic speaking to these people. I've loved having the conversations I've had so far on this podcast, and I'm so excited for some of the future ones I've got lined up. Hopefully some really good guests, and hopefully you have enjoyed it so far. I'll always welcome feedback, and if there's any suggestions you have, please do let me know. Likewise, if there's any people you know who would make a great guest, then please let me know as well, and we can try and make it happen. Remember this, lesson 5, people are interesting. That brings us to the end of the episode and the 5 lessons that I've learned from my first month of podcasting. I hope you have enjoyed it and have taken some value from it. I know it's a little bit different to the interview style, but I just thought I would reflect on some of the things I've learned in the first month. It's not something I do all the time, but I just thought it was good to do and to reflect on some of the things that I've learned and hopefully reinforce them into your minds as well as mine. If any of the lessons from today have resonated with you, let me know which ones and tell me how you're implementing it in your own day-to-day life. If you do want to keep up to date with what's happening on the podcast, then give us a follow on Instagram at Lonely Chapter Podcast. Otherwise, it's goodbye from me. Thank you for listening.